Welcome to Downtime discussions on Daisies and Dragons. My name is Shubham Mehta. I shall be one of the co-hosts for the day. My pronouns are he, him, and we're going to be talking about the final episode of Miss Marvel, No Normal. There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to discuss. But before we do that, allow me to throw to our guest for the day, who we are very excited to have. Hamnah, please, can you introduce yourself?
Hello everybody. Yes, my name is Hamnah. I use any and all pronouns and I am a TTRPG performer. I'm super excited to be here with Daisies and Dragons. I've been lurking your channel for a while now, and getting to be here is really, really exciting for me. So yeah, I'm just super excited to talk about the show with you all and to get right to it. And I will pass it over to Indrani. Indrani, who are you? Tell me.
Hello, I am Indrani. I am bad at doing these intros. My pronouns are she, they. And I'm just really glad you're here, Hamna, because since episode 1, we were like, we should get Hamna to come talk to us. We should get Hamna on this show. And the fact that we managed to do it for the finale is makes me very happy. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on things. And I'm going to throw it over to Chirag. Hi, Chirag.
Hi, I'm Chirag. Been here since episode 1. Also very excited to have Hamna here. I'm sad that Kingo didn't respond to our fan letters to come as well, but what can be done? We're very happy that we have Hamna. We consider this a win, and we're excited to talk about the finale of Miss Marvel, right?
Yes, we are. We are totally very excited. It's an interesting episode. We are back in Jersey City, away from Karachi, and there's a lot going on. The Department of Damage Control is on the toes of Kamran. Kamala has told her parents about who she is, and now she has to kind of try save her friends. And it's complicated because she also knows that Kamran's mother has sacrificed herself to help Kamran, which she knows is going to be a source of emotional pain, as I imagine it would be for anyone. So as they're trying to tackle these secrets, they're also hounded by this department. They land up in the school and set up a bunch of booby traps to try help Kamran escape. Things go pear-shaped very quickly. Big fights ensue. Powers show themselves. Communities come together. And at the end of the day, we have a happy ending of sorts where Kamran does manage to escape. Kamala does kind of really grow into a power. See what I did there? And we have her finally realizing what her name and her look is going to be, which is all very exciting. And then there is a special post-credit scene which sets up a lot of more exciting things, and we'll get to that. So yes, let's talk about this. Hamnah, thoughts, initial impressions. What do you have to throw at us? Tell us.
Well, I haven't been here for the whole season, so if it's okay, I think I'm just gonna give like overarching impressions of the show in general, instead of like just the finale. Okay, the first thing that I noticed about the show, maybe obviously because we're watching a television show, were the visuals. Like the visuals were edited so well, not just in the way that like they incorporated like Kamala's like doodles and stuff into the shots, and the way that like when we see texts, we see like them in like the window as like neon lights or on the streets, like painted on the roads, but also just like the way the camera moves with the characters was really cool for me personally to see, just cinematography wise. Like when she's like lying down in her bed, like the camera follows her. When Kamran is like on the street, it like follows him as he like stands up and stuff. And I thought that was a really cool way to sort of like put us in the headspace and the mind space of the different characters that we were seeing, which is maybe like a minor thing, but I just thought that was really, really cool. I love to see fun like editing and cinematography in shows and movies. So yeah, that was a fun thing.
Yeah, I remember that scene where she's like in bed and the camera follows her. I saw how they shot it, and like, it can't be that difficult. And it's this huge contraption that just like goes up and the camera goes with them. Like, that looks so dangerous but so cool at the same time. I'm like, they really wanted this shot to look good for such a small bit. I'm like, yeah, they did. They went hard on all the little bits, so you really felt like you're part of it.
I think it also keeps up with like Kamala's energy, right? Like just the vibe and the energy of the show, like it makes me feel like I'm a part of it because of how fluid and how dynamic the shots are. And I think, yeah, it almost like adds to the storytelling and in any good cinematography should. But I think it did a great job. I agree, Hamna. What else? Tell us. Full season, right?
Yeah, the full season. I thought I wasn't expecting the show to go to Pakistan. Honestly, I was really pleasantly surprised when they were like, "We're just gonna go there now." I thought it was kind of funny that it was just like Nani calls being like, "Show up right now, immediately," and they just drop everything and go. And I'm like, "Okay, sure." But I thought it was really nice to see, especially. So I was born in Pakistan, but I moved to Canada when I was like 5. And then every year, like every summer, my family would like go back and visit. And I grew up in Lahore. That's where my family's from. But we stopped going back around the time that I turned like 10 or 11. So I haven't been back in like a decade or so. So it was really fun for me personally to like see modern day Pakistan because I haven't seen it, to be honest. I don't know what Pakistan looks like anymore. My memories of it are like 10 years old now, right? So that was really fun for me to see, and a really cool way for I think them to incorporate a little bit more of like Kamala's like Pakistani background and to like go into the stories about like the partition and stuff like that, and to sort of incorporate that in a way that takes it like away from the more like Western setting. Because I feel like there is something about like if they had tried to tell that story entirely in New Jersey or like entirely in America, like I feel like there's something about placing it in a Western setting physically that kind of changes the lens of the story a little bit. So it was fun to sort of see it getting pulled back.
Yeah. Indrani, you have some thoughts, I think.
I was just nodding because I agree. And I think for me personally, it was really nice to see Karachi being, again, it was the visuals, colored the way it was. Like, I loved the way it looked. I am so, like, I mentioned this earlier, but I'm so tired of like this yellow goddamn filter that goes on any like South Asian location that Westerners come to. But
it's like sepia filters everywhere.
Yeah,
oh my god, yeah.
Everybody looks jaundiced. I don't know why people do that, right? So just I loved how beautiful they made Karachi look. Like, I really appreciated that. I feel like that meant a lot to me. But yeah, that was me. Sorry. Shaman, do you want to say something?
No, I was just fascinated. I agree that I liked seeing, like you guys say, the representation of like a South Asian part of the world. And you're right, the lens does change because of where you set the story. And again, I think we're getting into like the nitty-gritties now because we've talked about this. But the story, I think, was trying to juggle so much that I almost wish they had gotten more into this side of her past in a second season after we have finished developing her family in Jersey first.
Yeah.
Because by the time we went to Karachi, I was just like, but where's Bruno? Where's Appa? Where's like the brother? I'm missing them. Where's Nakia? Like, I need Nakia in every episode.
Yeah.
And so that was probably frustrating more, but at the same time, it was great to see. Karachi.
I was kind of torn about it because like up until like last week, I was in the same boat. Like, this felt more like they could have, like, the strength of the show was in New Jersey with all these other characters. I wanted to see how they were doing, especially last episode, which was so short. I felt you could have intercut like New Jersey or thing and just like really stress the importance of like how important New Jersey is because the community is so important to Kamala in the last episode when they come together. So it would have been, I felt nicer to see that. But on the other hand, because like I thought, everyone knows about partition because I grew up with it, I could hear about it all the time. And then I see on Twitter like, wow, I can't believe partition happened. I'm looking like, how do people not know this shit? I mean, like, it felt like for many Americans, they were like, they had no idea partition ever happened. They had no idea what the fuck was. And I'm like, oh, maybe this was important. I'm like, you have to know. It's like finding out someone didn't know World War II happened. And then it's just like, what the? So, okay, I see this was important. And it was the problem with the show. They weren't going to get a season 2 before Marvels happened, as we can see from the post-credit scene.
Yeah.
That, they had stuff to do in Marvel. Like,
Yeah.
they're not going to have time to go back to do Kamala's independent stuff to like that. So it's like, fine, we get it. Why they felt they had to do it all now. So I get it. I'm on the fence about it more than I was last week.
I think that just speaks to the fact that, like, at the end of the day, Miss Marvel is a show for diaspora. I don't think that's a very hot take to say. Like, I don't think it's made for like people living in like South Asian countries right now. Like I don't think it's made for Pakistanis in Pakistan. It's about a Pakistani girl, sure, but it's about a Pakistani girl living in America. And I think at the end of the day, like that's who the show was made for. It was made for American audiences, made for Western audiences, for better or for worse. And so I think that sort of speaks to that idea of like why the partition storyline was maybe, like you said, like a little bit more important in the sense that like in the West we don't get taught about that. I know about it because again I'm Pakistani, so like it's part of my family's history, and so I know a little bit about partition just through like my family. But in terms of school, like I wasn't taught that. That's not information that I was given, and if I wasn't desi myself, like I probably would have never known about it until watching this show, or like if a friend of mine told me, I guess. But
that's fascinating.
I would love that conversation, how that would play out though. So having lunch together, it's like, hey, so have you heard about the partition? It's like, no, what's that?
Hey, do you want to hear about some trauma from my back home? Like,
yeah. Do you want to hear about like one of the worst atrocities? Nah, it's fine. I'm not in the mood. I'd rather have the pizza. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. So that's actually because we seem to be circling this. There seems to be like, I think you nailed the point, which is that there is a conversation that this is aimed at the diaspora, and you could definitely feel it because, for example, right, there's a moment where in the second or episode or so, they're talking about their favorite Bollywood film, and it's like, I know it's supposed to be Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, but Bazigar is like such a better choice, and everyone in India was like, what are you on about? In no world is that an actual answer. But then it feels very much appropriate to like how I feel like the diaspora audience might have reacted to those two films. But this also speaks to the importance of community, because I think no matter where you are, you find a kind of like sense of home through your community, right? So whether you're kind of in South Asia or you're part of the diaspora somewhere, that community always seems very powerful in how it affects your life. So let's talk about that, because again, it seems to be an important theme in the show. I want to quickly first throw to Hamnah. I just want to ask, how were they with the representation of community? Because I don't have any personal experience, in that part of the world. Do you think they did a good job? Were there missteps? And then we can throw to Chirag as well. Yeah.
Before we do that, I'm just so curious now about like your reactions to the scene about like Bhatikar versus it wasn't Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, it was Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge.
Oh wow, it was
DDLJ. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm curious, what were like I'm just curious, what were your reactions?
I'm staying out of the controversy. I'm staying out of it. You can't pin anything on me.
I can't imagine Bazigar being considered the better film to DDLJ. Also, because like in terms of like the story, DDLJ is like captures a whole mindset of a generation. Bazigar doesn't. It's a very different story. So it's very odd that, and also I'm surprised because these references feel like something that 20 plus, like someone in their 30s would be making. So I'm.
Again, I think that's like Indians or like desi people in desi like countries sort of thing. Like I totally have cousins who are in the States who like are just like huge SRK stans, and their favorite like that sort of quintessential Bollywood is what comes to mind, at least like in my experience with my cousins. So yeah, it made
like
sense.
That man is getting old. He needs to like stop. I feel like in modern movies.
Do not say that to him. He's
no, cut this out. I'm gonna get canceled.
You're gonna get canceled. No, really, he's like 50. He's the same age as my dad, and he's like 56 or something, closing in, and he does not. He's like, I feel like.
Okay,
this is like
it's not his age that's the issue. It's the fact that he still gets paired with like these young.
Oh yeah, that's 100%.
Weird. Can we give him an age appropriate love interest, please? Like,
yeah,
that's actually a ongoing conversation that keeps coming up, because that's true for all the older actors in the industry, right? They're like all the people who are in their late 50s, and they're being paired to people who were like not even born when they started acting. And you're like,
it's very weird.
And it's mostly because we don't seem to keep Indian actresses like they don't get jobs after a certain age, which is again so wrong. But because there's some brilliant talent out there. Indrani, you had something to say.
No, I don't remember what exactly this was, but there was this conversation around how there was a male actor who'd played Amrita Khan's love interest in some, and then later was Sana Ali Khan, her daughter's
Right.
male love interest, and I'm like,
That's just weird. That's just weird.
It's bad, but that's not only unique to Bollywood.
No, it's not. No, it's
James
totally
Bond,
not.
the most recent one, Daniel Craig was 54 now, and his love interest is currently 37. So there is like a gap. I think it's more pronounced in Bollywood than it is in like culture, but it is like a common thing in lots of media around the world. It's not just Bollywood, but you see it a lot. It's like more pronounced because you're like, I've been seeing Shah Rukh Khan since I was a baby, and now he's still doing the same one. The girls are not getting any older. It's like
I really don't even. I would go so far as to say I don't even think it's more pronounced in Bollywood. I think it's equally as bad in Hollywood as well. It's just an unfortunate patriarchy gestures vaguely. I'm sorry.
No, that's really accurate. I love it. I feel like I'm going to start doing that from now. It's like every now and then something I was like, patriarchy. That
gestures vaguely.
You have to say it for it to have the effect.
Yeah, love it.
But sorry, to go back to your original question before I derailed the conversation.
No, this is how these go. It's all good. For me, DDLJ over Bazigar for sure. I'm like, I don't know what the hang up there is, but it is what it is. I kind of wanted to pivot back to the community conversation, right? How did you feel? Like, did they do a good job sort of representing like the community that a mosque or mosque going people might have? Did you?
And do you know a sheikh as cool as Sheikh Abdullah? Because that is the coolest sheikh I've ever come across.
Okay, I will say, I will say. So I am Muslim, but I didn't grow up in a family that would like go to the masjid regularly. Like we are the family that like goes to masjid on Eid. And like, during Ramzan, we'll go every Friday for that. So I can't really speak to whether or not like people who regularly go to masjid, like how they feel about their community and stuff like that. But I see parallels because when my family came to Canada, my parents obviously were very quick to find like the other Pakistani like families in the area and sort of like make friends with them and stuff. So I grew up with this like very extended network of like other Pakistani families, and their kids and stuff like that. And we were all family friends and we would literally see each other like every weekend and all of the major holidays and stuff we would like spend together. So like we would always do Eid together and like all of like everything. We would like go on trips and like all of that fun stuff. So in terms of like just the community aspect of it, I definitely feel like that resonated with me in particular because, seeing like the Eid Mela, for example, like in that one episode that they did, I was like, oh yeah, like that's definitely a thing that happens. Like there are those like big markets and stuff like for Eid that like masjids will host, but even sometimes not even like through the masjid, it'll just be like a community center or something that'll do them. And it is like this big, like vibrant, like event where a lot of families will come together and stuff. So I definitely think that was represented well, this feeling of like, there are other families that are from like the same ethnic background, the same religion that sort of come together and like spend time together and are supportive of each other. And also, the classic, like, what was funny to me about the episode about the Eid Mela was like looking at all the different cliques of like who exists in the community. Cause I was like, that also just feels so real. There's like, the Toronto mans, the like fuck boys that are like, they're like not really doing the Muslim thing. And then there's like the super religious, like can't even look at a girl kind of like dudes. And then there's like the gossiping aunties who know everything about everybody. And like just that whole thing was like, that was really funny for me to watch because I was like, yeah, like that's very real.
Yeah.
Amazing.
What about
you? Illuminatis.
Yeah, no, it's like when you were like saying like, oh, when my parents came to Canada, they immediately found the other Pakistanis. Like that's like such a real thing. Like my grandfather was just like talking like, oh, when he was in Jersey, if he saw like an Indian, even if it was like fathers, they would all turn and they'd immediately go to each other and say hello because they were so rare to meet other Indians. And it's like my parents, when they went to Lagos, they immediately found the other Sindhis, they found the other one, and they made that a community, and those guys became my friends. And it's like what Kamala's mom said, like she felt so alone, then she found the other Pakistanis. It's like it's not a racist thing, it's not a thing. It's like you're looking for someone who like you can has a similar background to you, someone who can resonate, so you're not feeling alone. Because otherwise, you might feel a bit lost in the city. You might feel difficult in a new location, and that does become like your family when you're in a new country. And like that, the scattered diaspora does like come together when you find each other, and like that is very real. That's like a thing, and through that you make your own community, you make your own, like you said, go on trips, you go have your eat parties, you have all those kind of things, and that felt very real. Even if you're in Lagos, if you're in London, if you're in Canada, I said Canada as if that was a city.
You know what? It's fine. It's fine. It's just we're all in one place.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's funny because like it's not even just like my parents that do it. Like I do it too, even as somebody who's like one generation down. Like for example, in the mall, in the city that I'm in. So I moved here for grad school, and in the mall, I was like looking for like rugs for my apartment, and I found this one store that is run by a Pakistani family, and all of the rugs are like made in like Pakistan. And I was like, oh my God, that's so exciting. I literally went over and like went to talk to the owner of the store because I was like, hey, like, yeah, me too. So it's like funny because it's not even just like the older generation, I feel like, that does it. I don't know. I don't want to speak for other people my age, but at least I still like feel excited when I meet other people from the same background. Like even if they're not Pakistani, even if they're Indian or like other like version of desi people, I always get excited. I'm always like, I'm here too. Let's go.
I had a glimpse of this experience when I was visiting the States, and I had been to, I was like 14 or 13, and I had been told that like, oh, everybody's real friendly there. Like people will say hello on the streets and stuff, and that was happening a lot. Like there were white people walking by and they're like, hey kid or something, and then I was like, okay. But then I saw this one Indian family walking by, and the mother looked at me. She had like 2 kids with her. She looks at me and she's like, just nods her head in the side fashion, like, you're okay, right? Like, you're fine. I love it. And I was like, and I returned the same nod with like a smile. And she walked by. We didn't exchange words, but we had a connection in that one.
I love that.
There's a soul connection. You feel it.
Yeah.
There's an interesting thing because I've had the slightly inverse, and this might be the coconut in me speaking, because so I grew up in South Africa, and Durban has the largest population of Indians outside of India. And so it was interesting because even though I didn't grow up in Durban, there was a large presence of just Indians across the country, but they were all like 4 generations down. So for them, I was the exotic one because they were like, oh, you're from India. And so they would have a lot of like these perceptions about like what my life must have been like. And they kind of still had this idea of India from like 1940. And I'm like, no, we are fine. We have progressed. Like, you know, we are a developing nation, but we've come far away. So I wouldn't often resonate with them because they would still be practicing a lot of like the older traditions and stuff. And as far as the modern click stuff went, it wasn't resonating with my nerdy side. So I would land up with like all the white people who were nerds, and it was like this weird thing where I was the token Indian in that community. But my parents, they were like more like what you guys are describing, where because they were older and they just needed a sense of like community again, we would every other weekend there would be like a dinner that you'd go to, and it would be a bunch of Indian families that have just connected and are hanging out, right? And there was even the one thing, by the way, the part where they're going around a town area in the town, which is like clearly desi, and it's got like all the desi food and everything. That is, it's exactly, that's there in every place. Like it's like there's always a Chinatown in a way. It's like there's a Chinatown in Johannesburg. It's and it's called, and it's like literally where all the different kind of Asian ethnicities come together and sell their merch and stuff like that, right? Merch, I mean, like, and similarly, there's Fordsburg, which is again where like all the Indians would come together and would be selling things, and you would get like all your little like snacks and spices over there. So there is definitely that, and I do think there's a power in the fact that people look out for each other in that, and that show, and I think the show again captures that really well.
Oh right, Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
I actually have a question.
No, we were going to talk about that a bit more, but okay, fine. We can move on.
I actually have a question for you three that I was really curious about, like based on the show. So in you bring up a really interesting point, Shubham, about like going to like Western countries and then being met with like outdated ideas of like traditions and values and stuff of like back home. And that's something that I've always wondered about. Like for my parents, for example, like they have a very now outdated idea of what like Pakistan is like because they haven't been back in years either. And so it was interesting for me to see, for example, like the way that Kamala's like parents were like treating her and like the values that they were like pushing onto her and like sort of like the rules that they had for her. Because in like many ways I can relate to that. But I was just curious, like, is that an outdated parenting style now? Like, are those still values that like that like would be considered like modern for like Indians and Pakistanis like actually living in India and Pakistan, or like is that now outdated?
I think I can feel this one because it's again very much like a core part of the way they treat her is that she's a girl. And I don't think it's necessarily outdated. Like I've had my parents give me similar conversations about like the dress is too tight, you can't be going out at this time. Like all of those things still ring true. I think what has changed probably is the sort of allowances. There's more that can be done now without like facing the wrath of your parents or whatever, but like the core of it, right? Like the way they want to protect her from people, like she must be protected because like she talks about how her brother doesn't have the same sort of restrictions, and that's very much true. Like till date, like a lot of my female friends who have older brothers, they'll always be like, oh man, he gets away with so much shit that I can't. And yeah, no, I think it was pretty like I felt it in a weird way. My dad was more like Muniba than my mother was always really chill, but my dad was very much like he was no. I think it sort of fit the narrative pretty well. But
the old-fashioned thing can be in different cultures, like especially in the US, like outside India, because that's like hard more experience. I used to work with the British Pakistan Foundation, and we would like go to different cities where we would try. And we had one thing where we would try and like teach desi Pakistani women, desi women, sort of how to like start their own businesses. And while we were there, we're just seeing like the kind of Pakistan they remember, the kind of they were much more like outdated compared to like modern Pakistan, and it's like they were like living up to a Pakistan that doesn't exist anymore. They were living up to an India that doesn't exist anymore. As a very old fashioned, and you'd like see like their attitudes were much more, even though they were in Birmingham, a lot of them were a little bit old fashioned. But then you see like some of their kids, some of them, are old fashioned, like you mentioned, the super religious ones, but also like the very not religious ones. Like an example, if you ever see the British show Citizen Khan, it is basically what it's like having an old fashioned kind of dad with like, you know, the kids who are not so old fashioned. And you can see how it's kind of like not gelling because it's like, this is the way it's supposed to be. And it's like, it's sort of like nostalgia, how things are supposed to be. And it's like, you're remembering something that's from the 60s or the 40s. And it's like, it's not nearly, and like, if you go there now, like you said, it's much more modern than they might remember.
I wonder if like people who immigrated and haven't been back to like say Pakistan or India in a long time come back, I wonder if that's like a culture shock for them, like, which is a strange sort of thing, right? Because it's I wonder what
I think you're so right though. Like I think it's almost like not quite a foreign place anymore because it's still home, but like in a way like it's moved on in a way that you haven't yet. And that's always like something that like I've thought a lot about is like I wonder what it's like to even like be my parents and to hold on to this idea of a country and like what it's like and what values you're supposed to have, especially because like one thing that like Muniba says in the show at one point is something like you're different, you know, like you're not like them. And the implication I think there is like you're not like these white people, right? Like you are different, we have different values. And that's something that like really resonated where I was like, yeah, my mom has said the same thing to me before. And it's just I think part of holding on to that conservatism is like trying to hold on to your culture, right? In a country where people are trying to take that away from you. In a country where you're being asked to assimilate. And I think part of that pushback is saying like, no, like I'm holding on to my culture, but doing it in a way where like this culture doesn't actually super exist anymore back home. So I always thought that was like an interesting sort of
I think one of the ways I look at it is often that locally, like say, let's speak for India, right? A lot of people look to the West as the source of aspiration. So there's like, oh, we got to emulate a lot of the Western things, and also selectively, right? Like we got to emulate some of the business side of things, the capitalist side of things, but maybe not like women shouldn't dress like they do in the West because that's morally loose. So there'll be those weird ways in which we kind of make sense of it. And then at the same time, a lot of like the more ideas around my cat has decided to play with. Okay.
Zoomies.
But yeah, zoomy time. Okay, so the ideas around like religion or like how we express culture, those change. So we, for example, like I would say one of the ones that has changed the most is firecrackers aren't a big thing in the cities. Like they're still there, but I remember 10 years ago, they would be everywhere, especially like during Diwali and Eid and those kind of things. But then now it's like, it's a very muted thing because people understand that it's part of pollution and it's just generally not a good idea, and it risks other people's safety. And so, but if you go to the West, it's like, hey, this was a big thing for me growing up, so I got to hold on to it and replay this. And you're like, that's not what defines you, but I understand why you hold on to signifiers more than anything else. And it's weird. I think we can keep trying to unpack this because the whole experience between local and diaspora is it's a constantly shifting narrative between what it doesn't mean to be from one geographic location and one cultural identity.
And I feel that was like the B plot of like the villains. I feel like that was kind of like the thing that the show kind of like had to like imply rather than say, like the whole point of like, oh, feeling culture to a place that doesn't exist anymore, feeling like part of that, whether it is the grandmother who is like, my heart's in India, I grew up in Pakistan, I can't go to this barrier. The villains were very much like they were exiles from where they were from, and they will even come on at the end so that I don't belong here. I have to go back to where I belong, even though he was never born in that part in the Jin land. He was not born in Nor. So it's like him wanting to go somewhere that doesn't exist anymore. And even his mother, like hundreds of years, they've been on this planet, enough that she had a kid, but she still wanted to go back there. It is very much that like you can't go back anymore to that place. If you go back to that place, it'll destroy you. It's not possible to go back anymore. Not like it wouldn't destroy you now, but it's like that place doesn't exist. And you're going, and it's like there's no accepting of like what you are, like, accept your past, but also recognize where you are, which is what Kamala's doing. Like she accepts her past, she understands her past, she time travels, and like she can understand all these parts of her and fit in the new, in the world she is, who she is. But like the villains cannot. That's their main problem. They will destroy everything because they cannot accept where they are. And at the end, like, come on, he's like very, like, he accepts going, he will physically travel and change himself. He's letting go of like, I don't know if he's let go of the Noah thing. He just kind of had to go to, avoid getting get by damage control. But even him, he had to accept the fact that no, there is a place for you. It's just not where you expected it. Yeah.
Speaking of
that's actually
oh, sorry, go on.
Sure. I think that actually really captures something, which is there's something that basically colonization inflicted the trauma of kind of forcefully changing what a person's culture would have been, right? So across the world, we saw people either ripped away from where they were, kind of where their culture was growing, or that culture itself morphed into something that it was no longer recognizable. And now after post-colonization, everyone is trying to define what their new identity is. And there are some who are chasing the idea they have of the past. And then there are those who are like, it doesn't matter, we have to move forward. And there's this tension between the two and I find, I could be jumping the gun here, but I find that that's often the tension between, like, say, the right and left wings of political parties. The right wing is often trying to demand that we return to an ideal you can no longer really achieve anymore because it's in the past. You only have ideas of it. But then there's the left, which is trying to say that it's kind of maybe aggressively saying cut all ties and move on, which is also unrealistic in its way.
I don't agree necessarily with that, but we'll unpack that later.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the political analogy aligns entirely.
This is not the space to talk about left and right wing in regards to this. This is not why people tuned in.
Yeah.
I mean, too late. We've been discussing diaspora and desi and abandonment.
But I will say though that I think the tension of like nostalgia versus like in this case I think like a colonial version of assimilation. I think it's interesting because Gamla almost melds the two in a way that I think like really speaks to that like third generation kid experience of like she like Judak said, like she got to go back to. Sorry, my cat is like destroying things in the background. Like she got to go to the past and like get to experience, you know, her history, her family history, and really see it for what it is. But she also has ties to the present. Like she has ties to her current culture. She has a version of it that may not be exactly what it used to be, but she has a version of it that is very real, that is very grounded, that has all the people that she loves, her family, Nakia, like even Bruno, I would argue, you know, as part of that. And she was sort of
Bruno is an honorary desi in my head, like yeah.
When he was speaking Urdu, I died because his accent is so funny.
Really cute.
But yeah, I think Kamala like is a nice sort of like melding of the two and kind of shows like a way to move forward, a way to sort of heal from the traumas of like the colonial past, but without like saying that we need to let go of all of that, that we can still hold on to parts of our culture, but sort of heal from what has happened to us collectively.
Yeah. Exactly. But we were talking about the clandestines, right? And I kind of want to like now go back to talking about the plot and the story of Miss Marrow, but like Najma's like her sacrifice in the end, I'm like, what was up with that? Like that sort of came out of nowhere, and I'm not entirely...
It did. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, like you can do that. You can just choose to
I
close.
don't get that powers.
It was like honestly the sort of plot and like there were a lot of holes in the story that like my brain just was like, I'm gonna forgive all of this because I don't care, it's amazing, I love it, but like what the fuck was up with that?
I think that's generally become an issue across where we don't know why. For example, why is Kamran struggling to hold on to the powers? Like, is it because it's never explained? He's just constantly in pain, and then aggression or anger releases it in weird way. Like, sure, thematically, I kind of get it, but we have no idea as to why this is the way.
I have a theory. I have a theory about that. Okay, my theory is that Najma's not actually dead.
Okay.
I don't think, okay, prefacing this with I've never read the comics. I don't know what happens in them. So if this is like already explained in the comics, I'm sorry to the audience.
She's not in the comics.
Okay. I was like, I don't know if this is already explained, but my theory is Najma's not actually dead. I think she like her sacrifice was that she like turned herself into like pure nude, like the essence, and then she like went into Kamran. I think, and I think that's partially why it's so hard for him to hold on to, because I think his mom is like literally living inside of him.
That has to be a desi nightmare. That is the quintessential desi nightmare, isn't it?
But like at one point, like she says Kamran's like name, right?
Yeah.
She said like at one point we can hear Najma's voice.
Yeah.
So I just think she's not dead.
Poor kid, like he can never let go of his mom who lives. Oh man, that's going to be that's a lot of therapy. That's what that is.
That's the desi experience.
Spin-off in and of itself.
Yes, the desi experience. You can't get your mother's voice out of your head.
Yeah.
No.
Oh wow. Just like every time Kamran's having like he decides to finally try some alcohol, and you could just hear Najma going.
Astaghfirullah.
He's like, oh no, why can't I have a normal life? Amazing. I love that theory. I don't know how likely it is, but that is a theory out there. I think they should totally explore. Yeah.
I think I'm a little spoiled by I've been reading Brandon Sanderson's books, and like his magic, like the way magic works in his world is so easy to like parse once you read. And I think I've sort of started to expect that from other places. Like if you're doing cool supernatural stuff, help the audience understand it enough that when it does like big feats of like craziness, the audience can be like, oh yeah, I can see how that would happen.
Uh,
Like,
Sure.
I felt a little bit of that was missing because I was like, wait, what are the clandestines? Why can Najma close it? And how is she transferring her powers or like her soul? Like, what are you doing? I
I
don't
think
get it.
I think this isn't even like the Sanderson level of explanation, right? Like look at just the first Iron Man. So it's not like Marvel doesn't know how to do this. In the first Iron Man, you have like what's the AI's name?
Jarvis.
Jarvis. Go, hey, we haven't figured out the cooling problem because you set that up at the first time he takes flight, right? He doesn't know how to cool his thing, and we understand the limitations of the machine. And then that's what's used to resolve the final fight because it's like, did you figure out the cooling problem? And then the whole big machine freezes up. So it's very simple to set up key limitations of how because even the Iron Man suit is technically just magic. There's no way it actually works. But they explain the limitations of it, and the extent of how it works. And I don't think they do that with the Noor dimension and the bangle because we don't know what it's supposed to, how it's supposed to work.
That's the problem. Like you can get away with not explaining magic when it's like high magic, like Gandalf and that kind of thing, because like magic isn't necessarily used to like solve the plot, or it's like a weapon that the protagonist can use. It's just something someone else can do. But like Miss Marvel, she uses her powers. It's used a lot, so it's helpful to understand like how that power works. And I genuinely don't really get the Noor dimension, as well as the revelation at the end about the power. Do you want to go into that now, or should we save?
I mean, we might as well. So
we can do it now.
Yeah. Extra long special. It's fine.
Okay, so X-Men, the theme comes on. Every kid who grew up in the 90s is like, or even the 2000s, is just humming it, and I was like, wait, I know this song. What is going on? It's the Leonardo DiCaprio meme. It's like, wait, I know that. So yeah, that happened.
When they said, when Bruno says mutation, I was like, music kicks in, and I'm like, I look at my partner, and he looks at me, and we're like, wait, is that happening? And then I saw this meme somewhere on, like, I think Twitter or Reddit, where it was like the shot of Black Bolt's unfortunate ending in Multiverse of Madness.
Multiverse of Madness, yeah.
And it says, Marvel really said, fuck the Inhumans, right? Because like they basically just got rid of the Inhumans who were like their stand-in for mutants, and now they're like, okay, straight up mutants in the MCU. And I'm like, I love that for us. But I was so excited when that happened.
It makes sense because Miss Marvel's exists because they were like, oh, we want to do mutant stories, but we don't want to give Fox anymore because Fox owns the X-Men. So they decided, let's use the Inhumans as a substitute for mutants. So that's why Miss Marvel and a bunch of other ones, they said, oh, you're actually Inhuman. But they don't need to do that anymore because they have the rights to the X-Men now.
I love that there is whole characters and storylines being created just because of rights disputes, but that's
like a whole other problem in and of itself. I feel like.
Yeah, that's going to go on forever. Okay, so there's a lot of that stuff that's set up at the end, which is the mutants, X-Men. We also have the cameo. How are we feeling? Or what do you think is happening with Captain Marvel popping in? Any ideas, hot takes, theories? Shoot me.
Hot take number 1.
Shoot at me. Yes.
Okay, go.
Finally has a really good hairstyle. I really hope that they keep whatever
Captain
was happening
Marvel?
with her hair in that scene. Because my God, they've been doing Brie Larson a disservice so far. So
okay, look, I wasn't a fan of the mohawk either. It was not good.
Well, what was happening? I like the hair right now. A note to whoever's making
the hairstyle.
Disney, if you're listening right now.
I also love that the first thing Captain Marvel does the moment she realizes she's in an adoring fan's room is just go, oh no. It's like the worst place to land up. It's like, oh no, I'm in my worst nightmare. What is it?
I don't think that was teleportation.
What do you think
comics,
that was?
You want to sell?
She took like Kamala was not there anymore. It almost like she replaced Kamala, right? Like
that's what I was thinking. I was thinking they like swapped places. That like Kamala's somewhere in the like space now, wherever the fuck Miss Marvel was or Captain Marvel was.
It could be that. Alternatively, like we saw her like kind of shift and turn before she went to the closet. In the comics book, the first thing that happens to Kamala is she turns into, blonde-haired Captain Marvel. She turns into not Brie Larson. She turns into Captain Marvel. So that could literally just be her power. So when she says no, 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 that is Kamala saying, "Why am I white?" And she's getting very confused. What the fuck is going on?
That's just a really funny statement. Why am I white?
What did I do to deserve this?
Oh no, the coconut come out. No!
Was the
hold on.
halal? What happened?
No. Also, this reminds me, one of my favorite moments in the episode. There's a lot, but the moment the Sheikh puts the caps on the two kids and it's haram and halal,
I died. I was like, wow, you really did that.
The best detail was that Bruno got haram and the Papa Kamran got
Yep.
And I'm like, I feel like that's intentional right there. Oh,
well, you know what? Look, if let's be real, if Kamala was getting married, Bruno would be considered haram. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, Bruno would convert. He's halfway there anyway. He's like the guys at the Eid thing. Remember the convert?
The born again,
the reverts. Yes, the
reverts. I love it.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that the show is really good at, is capturing the little in jokes that would exist, even if we wouldn't specifically make them, just like the meme side of our culture, right? Like haram and halal, or like calling someone a revert. All of these things, it's so good at capturing them across the board. But yeah, that was that one. I think there's so many more. There's also another one where they're just stepping. I think I can't remember the defense lady's name, but she's like, these are the wrong kind of. You don't attack these kind of people, and you're like, what are you gonna say, kids? Oh, okay, that's where you were.
That was 100% intentional, 100%. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I went into like fight or flight response when she said that. I was like, oh no, what is happening?
We knew what she meant. We knew what she really meant.
Yeah, I was like, you're in a mosque and you're saying this.
I feel like that was implied throughout the whole show, though, where like this lady is very clearly racist and is just like throwing her weight around because she can. And I think like that was not something that Disney like explicitly said, but like I think it was very heavily implied that like this woman is really out here.
Yeah.
And then kudos to kudos to the Sheikh for quoting Abe Lincoln. I love that moment. It's like I don't have time for Quranic quotes. That's actually Abe Lincoln. It's like if anyone doesn't know their own history, it would be someone from America like that. It's just that kind of extreme view of not realizing your own history.
You work for the government. You gotta know this.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I think more than Disney, I think props to the writers like Biksha.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah, I think they did a great. I feel like even if there were any restrictions, like we can't have like straight up racist assholes over here, they did a really good job at like with just enough implication. Like I for sure was like, that lady is straight up racist. She's Islamophobic, and I hate her with every fiber of my being. So yeah, I think the subtext of the way she behaved was pretty like on point. And the fact that they in the earlier episodes, like they actually just straight up talked about like the whole good Muslim, bad Muslim narrative. Like if you are one of the good ones, you must speak up against like extremism, this and like that pressure that people like if you don't, then like the fact that they actually talked about it, and it went further than I thought a Marvel show would. So like props to whoever managed to get that through. Like I appreciate it.
Honestly, same. Like I felt that way about the scenes about like colonialism as well, where I was like, surprised to see this in a Disney show this blatantly. Like obviously it doesn't go like as far as I would like it to. Like I don't think that it truly hits in like a way that I think that like Bisha Ali and like everybody else who's part of this show could have gone if it wasn't, headed by Disney and headed by the whole ethos that they have there. But it still went, like you said, like a little bit further than I was expecting a Disney show to go. And I was like, okay, so we're really touching on these things, aren't we?
Yeah.
It makes sense to me. I mean, they weren't afraid to go like hard in Falcon and the Winter Soldier when they were like talk about, black people being treated by the police, how difficult it was to like, be black.
Straight up experimentation, which is a thing that actually happened.
I remember the one scene where the police come and they say like, and they were like, "Is this man bothering you?" And they said, "This is Falcon." He's Falcon. And, oh, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. If you didn't know he was Falcon, they were going to arrest him. And like it gets worse with the military experimentation, like you said. But yes, it's like the Disney Plus shows aren't afraid to do it. But yeah, of course they could go farther. They could go much harder if they had more episodes and they had more time. I think they would have.
I'd say another thing that kind of surprised me that they did is they straight up had people shooting at kids. Like no one was like, yeah, I know they're superpowers, but we're still shooting bullets at them. Like,
I mean, those non-lethal rounds blew a hole through a wall.
Yeah, you're like, what is this non-lethal round? But again, that's like rubber bullets. They keep saying those are non-lethal. They are very much can do a lot of harm, and we've learned this in the last few years, I guess. If no one else has. So it's. I'm surprised that they showed this because that was a scary moment to realize that Kamala Khan is being shot at. At
the end, I don't think. Yeah. At the end, I don't think those were non-lethal rounds. I meant when they were doing those sonic blasts. Those were probably non-lethal. But the when they were actually shooting at Kamran and her at the end outside, I don't think those were non-lethal rounds.
Yeah,
It felt very like scary in that moment watching it. But what took me out, weirdly enough, was that the police sort of like starting to shield Kamala. I was like, that would not.
No. As soon as that happened, I was like, okay, we've lost the plot here. Because I was like, all right. Firstly, the fact that crowd was just able to just like very kindly, I think the parents just like very nicely moved the barrier and then moved, and then the cops just didn't. I looked in that scene very specifically. They just stood there and they just let everybody like surround her. First of all, that in and of itself would not happen. The crowd surging would have already warranted a police response in sort of retaliation. But yeah, I agree. The fact that the cops were like, we're going to stand here in solidarity with these people against essentially what is the FBI. I'm like, no. No.
It got a little Pepsi commercial for me. Just a little.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
I mean, in my mind, it wouldn't be the first time the police have done nothing whilst that was going on, but
not for this group. For this group.
Yeah.
Not in this. But this is them standing up. I get it.
I think I was saying this in chat as well. It reminded me, I saw this scene similarly play out in the older Spider-Man films, Tobey Maguire and in Andrew Garfield's, where we see cops somehow working with Spidey and like working with the community to do good. And you're like, this feels very 2000s, where the more popular perception of the cops was they are still somewhat aligned with the people's thing. But I think minorities have always been aware that that's not the case. And now that's been more blatantly revealed to the general public.
It felt like with the Spidey thing, right?
Yeah.
That still feels more like just the sheer fact that these were two Muslim brown kids, like that just makes it it just makes it implausible that would happen. Like even with like people working with Spidey, it feels more believable than this scene. But Hamnah, go on.
Sorry. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean the cops don't know Spidey's white, but they assume.
Yeah, Hamnah, you were saying something.
I was literally gonna say the same thing of like it's just the fact of like who these people are that I don't think it even matters, right? Like even with Spider-Man, like you have to consider that Spider-Man is, as Chirag said, like assumed to be some white guy who's just out here like quote unquote like doing good in the city and like is just misunderstood, right? Whereas these kids are from the get-go, from the beginning, like identified as like they are brown, they are Muslim, and they're out here like they're played up as like they are causing harm to the city, they're like tearing it up, they're like hurting people, etc. And so I think just the dichotomies in even the two characters, let alone just the time of like when these stories are being told, kind of made it extra like iffy for me, where I saw that scene and I was like, this is just propaganda. This is just Disney trying to be like, the police are your friends, actually.
I always felt like the cops in that region, just generally people in like New York, New Jersey and thing, are always more superhero friendly than government friendly, because the superheroes like, oh, they have a musical, the superheroes Avengers saved us. Well, the government shot a nuke at us. So in my mind, I'm like, most cops aren't like that. Most cops are like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where they discriminate that. When like this world, it's like New York, New Jersey cops are like, no, we remember when the government shot a nuke at us. We remember this. We're more likely to side with the superheroes.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's still a representation of the world we live in, where superheroes don't necessarily exist. So like the cops in that show are, when I look at that cop, I am thinking about the cops in the world that we live in, right? And so for them to do, like, sure, that's like maybe that works, but at the same time, you're making a statement when you do something like that. You know what I mean? Like, and that statement inherently felt untrue to what the lived experience of like many brown people has been, right? Many Muslims has been. So yeah, that feels like a little weak sauce to me in terms of being like, oh yeah, the superheroes have been nicer to us. Sure.
And also because they framed it so dramatic, they were like the cops do like a 180
Yeah.
together. And I'm like, nah.
For me, it felt like very much the classic narrative that tries to get pushed every time like minoritized communities try and talk about like police aggression or police brutality and stuff, is the like, oh, it's just some bad apples. It's just some bad people in positions of power. And I felt like that was the narrative that was being pushed in like this last episode, especially because it kept being pushed as like, oh, this woman who I also don't remember her name, but like the blonde woman, she's the one doing all the bad things. Even other people in her department don't agree with her. Like her superior, for example, keeps telling her to stop and she just doesn't. And she just keeps going and doing all these things. And at the end of the day, she's the problem. And like once she gets fired, everything's okay. Like I feel like that was the narrative being pushed, and it's just not, this is not true.
Yeah, also the other unrealistic part is that she'll get fired. You're like, nah, she's going to get a retirement with full pay. Who are we kidding? So yeah,
did they say she was fired first? They said
she's relieved of her duties.
Yeah, that's not fired. She probably still has a job.
It's true.
Yeah. And it's like they said, like, oh no, she was the one who was damage control. Like, you put a bunch of people in prison without trial because you didn't know the kid's name, you didn't know Kaman's name, so you clearly didn't take him to trial. And like that, you just said a guy who's 16.5. You would have had a picture. Like, this is bad damage control. You have a lot of problems, damage control. Like morally and as an organization, you have lots of problems, and you cannot just blame it on one bad apple. You got problems.
If I may, this is a hard pivot, but I'm also aware of how much time we're taking up. Hard pivot to Aunt Ruby on TikTok and just kind of chiming in like with all the news. I just love that whole TikTok sequence because I think that also captures every time something happens is like you just have the 20 people talking about it. Also, if anyone wants to mention things about Zoe, because she feels like the Flash Thompson of the Miss Marvel world.
There was something about Zoe that I noticed, like when she said like, oh, and she's like having this conversation with Nadia, and she said like, oh, well, it was her thing to tell. That's not mine. And like I'm remembering in the comics that like that Nadia Nadia's gay, but doesn't act on it because of her fate. And she says, and so that's why I thought that, oh, they're like playing up their relationship. Like potentially there might be a romance in like future seasons.
Okay, I'm so glad you said that, because when Zoe said
it's Nakia,
that's not mine.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Nakia. My mistake.
Good.
Yeah, but when Zoe said like she should be able to like tell people on her own time, I immediately, as a queer person, I immediately pinged that, and I was like, that's gay. Those straight people don't do that shit. That's gay. And I was immediately like, Zoe queer? Zoe queer. I think Zoe's queer.
Okay, now this is a little bit of gay theorizing, allow me.
Sure.
But Zoe saying that to her, and earlier in the show they set up like Nakia like being like, oh, my boyfriend, this and that, and like them making a little bit of a statement about her romantic life, and then ending with like that sequence between Zoe and Nakia, and the look that they share. I'm like, is Nakia like not the Zoe?
I don't think that. I don't think that man is Nakia's boyfriend.
Yeah, no. That's what I'm saying.
No, he's definitely not, right? Because like in an episode previously, she like very clearly is like, help me, this guy won't leave me alone.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's not her boyfriend.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like them like making a point of that and then ending with that sequence with Zoe. I'm like, that's gay as fuck. Like, if that isn't,
Yeah.
She a little,
Just a little.
I love it. No, I agree. I'm all for season 2 exploring this side, and also I would like it if season 2 stayed with the three, Nakia, Bruno, even though they're going because Caltech and all of that. But Nakia, Bruno, and Miss Marvel, because they're the best dynamic. Like, and I want the brother to do a cameo every now and then because I love how he annoys his little sister. It's the cutest thing.
Oh my god!
And
superheroes don't chaperone, and it's.
That is so good.
Yes, but isn't that the most desi superhero thing ever? Though, if you were a superhero in a desi family, you would have your brother watching.
Yes, your Robin wouldn't be a little kid, it'd be your older brother.
100%. 100%. Man.
Oh, I love that.
I will say though that my one wish for this show is that the season was longer, because I feel like a lot of the problems we've been talking about like Najma's like random 2-second change of heart, like the thing with like, I feel like even Zoe's character felt a little bit like shoehorned into the story. Like she didn't really get as much time to like develop and really be part of it. She just kind of showed up. And like some of the other stuff, like the Noor not being properly explained, the Jinn realm not being properly explained, all that. I feel like a lot of that stuff could have been fixed with just a little bit more time to like explore some of this a little bit more. And then I think that would also potentially fix the issue of like that you, Shubham and Chirag brought up about like feeling like the jump to Pakistan and then the jump back to New Jersey felt too rushed. Like if we just had a little bit more time to flesh out a lot of these things, that would have been nice.
Yeah,
100%.
We actually like lightly touched on this in one of the previous episodes of this show that we do, that like it didn't get nearly enough time that it should have to like fully explore the story and do all parts of the story justice, and that feels like such a disservice because this show is almost like carrying so much weight. Like if this doesn't work, people in power who are like, well, we tried doing a show about a brown girl and see, it didn't work, it didn't land, but you're not giving it the resources it needs to fully flourish. So that was like, I 100% agree. It could really benefit with more time. And I feel like I had a similar complaint with Moon Knight as well, which also did, I think, 6 or 8 episodes. I don't remember.
6 episodes.
Yeah. But I agree. I think it did the best it could with the time it had. That's my opinion. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think I can agree to that. If there's another one, sorry, I'm just thinking back to. So in the last episode, I made this prediction. I was like, not prediction. I was like, I can see Bruno doing a whole Home Alone style episode where he's just defending his house through booby traps. And then when they decided to make the school, I was like, I never quite to call theories. Okay, I never theorize. I don't have great ideas about like what's going to happen. And then I was like, wait, that's happening. There's a bunch of booby traps. It's amazing. I think everyone has had a dream of turning their school into like a little destruction where you just come up with a bunch of like pranks. And it was great to see that. I enjoyed. These are just some things I enjoyed, like this. The final fight scenes. Hold on. Begin. I don't know why it's just such a perfect word. I love it. Yes.
Is that a reference to something?
Yeah, in the comics, anytime she's like enlarging her arms, or like that's her catchphrase, is like "embiggen," and then.
Oh, okay. Of all the catchphrases,
I thought it was a little silly when I heard it. I was like, "embiggen." What is that?
Yeah, I didn't get it.
It just sounds kind of silly, like "embiggen."
Yeah. I think it 100% is meant, like it's very much in that sort of campy comic book. Like that's like in the comic, you're like, oh, she's gonna do the thing now. But in the show, I'm like, I loved it because I know what they're saying. But like, if I didn't have that context, I'd be like, wait, why did she just? Say that?
like everything else in the show, kind of like they led into each other. Like, oh, Kamal means Marvel. That's why you Miss Marvel. And the outfit is like little pieces of thing, which is made by the mum, which is really sweet. Like the mum made it as like bit of her name, which written in Arabic. And it's like, oh, that's sweet. Everything comes together and you understand why this exists. And then in Biggin, I'm like, where did that come from?
You know what?
Okay, wait.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, wait. But speaking of her outfit, the dupatta, Chemo. Thoughts on Chemo. I need thoughts on him as a character.
I'm a fan of that outfit. Are people not fan of that outfit?
No, not of the outfit of Kareem as a character. What are your thoughts about him?
You know what? Like this is this is a little bit of like teenage Indrani having a little bit of wish fulfillment, but I love that there is like all these really cute brown guys in Western shows. Like I've always seen people who look like me or like look nerdy or not quite. Like I love that they're all cool characters. Do you know what I mean? Like Kamran is cool and Kareem is cool. Like the Red Dagger.
Kamran is so cool.
Yeah, they're all so cool. Like Kamala is dope as hell. And I really enjoyed the characters. I liked that while I thought the way Valim died, Farhan Akhtar's character died, was a bit rushed, and I didn't necessarily.
That was so random.
Yeah,
that was so random.
Yeah, what was the point? Like
he got stabbed in the back. Okay, he probably wasn't dead yet. They could have picked him up. That's all I'll say.
They could. This was a very Titanic moment. It's like there was room on the door, and you could have helped that guy up. He's a Red Dagger. You should be able to survive one stabbing.
Yeah.
In the back, not even in his spine. Like off to the side. Like, come on, that man was not dead yet.
Yeah,
we've spoken about like the Red Daggers. What the heck are they? I don't get what they're doing. How do they know Aisha? All these questions. Which maybe there'll be season 2. Maybe they're going to be like Kareem's going to explain this kind of like, why do you dislike my family? Well, it all began back in even before partition. We had this, and we see more, and then we get
in the comics. Kareem, the Red Dagger, is one person. It's not an organization. So with Valim out of the way, if Kareem is the only surviving Red Dagger, that actually brings him in line with what his sort of origin sort of story is, or what his character arc is, right? So I kind of understand why they killed Valim off, but I'm like, I didn't have enough time to care about this character. So, but Kareem as a character, I'm excited to see where he goes. I thought he was very cool, which, you know what, I need more cool, awesome, badass. Nerdy is fine. Like
so you can say it. He's hot. You can say it.
Okay, fine. He's hot, and I'm like, oh damn! Like I
oh no,
we deserve our hot brown man.
Yeah.
If you're talking about hotness, I'm sorry. Kamran walking out of the pool with Jalebi Baby playing is peak hotness. I think.
I'll say. My hot take is, I wish Kamran was hotter. I'm sorry. I'll
that
say
a hot
it.
take. That is hot. That is a hot thing.
I was a little disappointed, but that's okay because Kareem exists, and I'll live with that. And Nakia exists, and I'm in love with her.
Yeah, just love the show. She's so good.
I mean, like,
she's so pretty. I can't. Yeah. She's so pretty.
Yeah, Yasmin.
I love you. And also, I keep coming back to this because every time I watch a scene that Iman's in, I love her expressions. She's got the best kind of like little things going on her face that just kind of show her reacting to stuff, and she genuinely feels like someone who's having the time of their life, like being a superhero and figuring this out, and also playing that person. It just so Iman Vellani is, I think, the getaway star of this for me.
She's also Canadian, which is a fun little fact, which I was like, hey, I know the city she's from. I lived near there.
We could have been friends.
We could have been friends. We weren't, but
no, missed opportunity.
Yeah, do you play D&D? Would you like to come on this channel?
Yeah. We should reach out to Anjali, be like, hey, could you like hook us up?
Hook a family up. Yeah. Oh man, running a game of masks for the young cast of Miss Marvel would be so much fun. Can you imagine that? Okay, so make that happen.
I would implode.
Yeah.
I would actually implode.
I know, like they did that for Stranger Things, not masks, but they did like.
They did D&D.
Yeah, B. Dave Walters. Yeah, did a little game for them.
We like
yes. Anything else that we want to particularly talk about? Final thoughts? Otherwise, I think we're getting close to a wrap up.
Yeah, I think as a final wrap, maybe we can do like dissect the Miss Marvel will return in the Marvels portion of things. Like, what are we expecting in terms of storyline for Kamala in the 2023 movie? What are people's
I have
thoughts?
nothing to go on. I'm so unsure of where this can go. I just hope that Kamala isn't floating through space, because that would not bode well for her. Other than that, I'm okay with anything. I'm not sure.
It would be awkward if it is shape-shifting and not teleportation. It's going to be awkward for two reasons. If she has to explain to her parents why she suddenly white blonde golden are especially fond of instead of the brown darling. But if she is trapped in space, if Captain Marvel was fighting off the Kree or something, and then suddenly it's just little Kamala like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what I'm doing. I can barely fly. And then it's just going to be funny. It'll be awkward in so many different so many odd ways, especially about doing all that. But it's nice that the two actually got to hang out on set apparently, because they were like they became friends because of thing, but because they were in the same scene, that means they must have hung out in person.
That's cute. I have two thoughts about it. One is not a prediction, but my prediction's coming second. The first is I really hope it's not shapeshifting, just on principle of that takes away. Like, then it's the classic of like, oh, people of color just being animals in a Disney movie, except this time it's a person of color being a white woman in a Disney movie. And I'm kind of sick of it. And I would like to see people of color get to just be themselves in movies. That would be nice. So I just hope it's not shapeshifting, because I feel like then we get into like territory of like Kamala like doesn't get to be herself in the movie. And I'm over that. I'm over it. I would like to not see it. That's just my personal opinion.
Second take? I think
second is my actual prediction. Okay, my prediction is I feel like maybe the storyline that they'll go with is Kamala divorcing herself from this worship of Captain Marvel and trying to find out who she is when she's not like holding herself to the standard that she has built up in her head of like, what's a superhero like, what's Captain Marvel gonna do, and trying to essentially like come into her own as a superhero and develop her own identity and her own like way of being that isn't this like hero worship. I think that's my idea of like where a story could go between the two of them.
Yeah, I like that. I think that would be really interesting to see her realizing there's more to Captain Marvel than what has been just kind of received by her, and also allowing Captain Marvel to be juggling this thing of like, I'm always off planet doing stuff, and now I'm forced to be on Earth. I think the one good thing is the reason it shouldn't be shapeshifting is because if it's them swapping places or teleporting somehow, then it also gives a good reason for the actual Captain Marvel to be in the film, instead of like she comes in because someone looks like her, which is a very weak source reason to kind of be moved. So I would say that's another reason why teleportation just logically makes more sense.
Yeah, my prediction. Sorry, go.
Yeah. No, please. I'm gonna say mine for last.
So so we know Monica Rambeau, which is the little girl who became the superpowers from WandaVision. I feel like she interacted with Captain Marvel versus Kamala interacted going to be very different, because I don't think Monica likes Captain Marvel that much, because she was a little kid, she looked up to Auntie Cal, Auntie Danvers, and then she disappeared and she was alone. She grew up and her mom died during the snap. I feel like there would be a little bit of like resentment to Miss Marvel. I mean to Captain Marvel, which is like she's like her powers are a little bit similar, but then she'd be very angry. Like, you vanished, you were in space, you could have come back, you could have seen if she was okay, she was your best friend, and you didn't do anything. And it versus Kamala, who's like, oh my god, you're amazing, I love you, even the haircut, it's great, I love every bit about you. And there's like this thing, like never meet your heroes, kid. And it's like that dichotomy, like that Captain Marvel's got to deal with that. Like, I feel bad about you, you're clinging a bit too much to me, I don't know how to deal with all this kind of vibe. I think that could be like an interesting. The three will, I think, affect each other.
Yeah, this reminds me of Spider-Verse, because it's like it's the grumpy Peter Parker going, I don't want anything to do with all of you, leave me alone, and the other two complete different responses to him. That could be a lot of fun. Indrani, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I agree with Hamnah about like Kamala coming into her own, right? My theory is that in the partition sequences, the bangle is on a blue hand, which is, as we know, Kree people generally have blue hands. And the first Captain Marvel film had a lot to do with the Kree and the Skrulls, I believe, right? So, like, and Bruno being like, oh, you're a mutant, very cool. But, like, how that sort of being a mutant sort of manifests in this world is like we're still figuring that part out. So I think like just they've already done like the slight sort of connection between their stories, and I think that they might share some Kree blood, or like I don't know what it is, but I think it might be that sort of like Kree factor that ties their stories together as so that's theory number one. It's a very like loosey goosey theory. But other than that, I am excited for the shared dynamic between all the Marvels, like Monica Rambeau, Kamala, and Captain Carol Danvers. I just hope that they all have places to shine. Like I really just want Kamala to have her own place in that trio, because I want her to like be integral to the team. I don't want her to be like the damsel in distress, like who's now floating in space, and now the story that we go save her and we only see her like for a little bit or like doing small. Like I want her to be just as much of a force of nature as Carol Danvers, or maybe grow towards being a force of nature. Yeah, those are my hopes and
I agree with that last bit. Yeah, I really agree with that last bit. I think it would be really nice to see her like have like a purpose in the trio, have a purpose in the movie, have agency, and not just be somebody who's like fucking up all the time and needs to be saved all the time. Like I'm sure there'll be a little bit of that because she is, she's not
she's a
Captain Marvel, but she's a teenager, but like still having a little bit of that power to her.
I think it'll be like in Infinity War where Doctor Strange, Iron Man, and Peter Parker all ended up on a spaceship together. And Peter Parker, he was confused. He was like starstruck, but he was able to help out. He had an influence and he was effective at this. But I think they'll probably do something a little similar where, oh, I'm excited to be a superhero, but she's still helping out, even in space or wherever the Marvels end up. Shubham?
I'm sorry, just the mention of competency made me remember the two moments in the show that just before the final fight, right? Before Embiggen and everything. It's when she's running through Jersey City by creating the little things, and then she stops for the red light. All of that was just such a great way to introduce her, like really having grown into the powers. That was, I'm so happy I got to see that. Because even, here's the thing, the Spider-Man films have also not done a good job of having the swinging part shown. Like we don't get to see a lot of Tom Holland swinging through New York, which is so quintessential to Spidey. Yeah. And I'm just glad that we got to see like just the feet flying through the air. I was like, but also I feel like Kamala is good. I'm glad she's a mutant, because if she was a normal human and she was doing the cardio of running through the city on just steps, she would be exhausted wherever she arrives, because she just has the bangle and she's constantly running everywhere. That's going to be exhausting.
I think the workouts helped her, because now she can like swing off poles and do these things. I think the exercise has been good for her. I think she's been doing good.
This is really just one big long like workout PSA. Actually, like that's what the show is.
Yeah.
It's all the desi aunties like, see, you can't be a superhero if you don't exercise.
Yeah. At the start, she's like, I failed gym, and afterwards she's doing all these. Like, you're not going to fail gym anymore.
It's true.
Well, I think that with all of those predictions and hopes for the 2023 The Marvels film that brings us to a wrap. Thank you so much, everybody, for having this conversation with us. Hamnah, thank you for joining us, and we will see you all.
Hamnah, why don't you tell the audience where they can find you?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Right, the thing that you're supposed to do. Yes, hello, everybody. If you've forgotten, my name is Hamnah. I use any and all pronouns, and I am a TTRPG performer. Normally, what I do is, just like on Daisies and Dragons, where they play tabletop games, I also play tabletop games. If you want to come find me on the internet, you can find me on Twitter at @HShahid_. That's HSHAHID_. And that is where I talk about all of the different projects that I'm a part of.
So make sure to go check that out.
Check out Transplanar RPG and check out Lore Everlasting, please.
There's so many good.
Yes.
I'm on Divine Intervention on Mondays. There's 3 wonderful, wonderful long-term shows that I'm on right now. So
make sure you get your week full of Hamnah coming this Monday. Thank you all for joining us. Everyone, stay cosmic.
Bye. Okay.
Did we queue out?